Oh. Oh, I don't ever remember doing those for the past like 3 months.
Okay. Something like that, quarterly. I don't know. All right, so guys, we finished the Battle of the Bulge. Talked about McCarthyism a little bit and Soviet spies in our country. I want to start by looking at this map. I'll remove the map here in a second. But as we come in, here's Luxembourg, Belgium, Netherlands up here, France. As we start to come across the Siegfried line, you might call the Siegfried line, okay, German defenses will begin to collapse. Now, this is the Rhine River. You might remember the Rhineland, yes? This is the Rhine River. This is the largest river in Central Europe. So the Germans will try and put up a defense behind this river. It will not work. Now, here we've got an issue. We've got to figure out how we're going to finish this thing off. Now, those 3 million troops that came across the English Channel, their goal was to take Berlin. They knew if we defeated Berlin, the war was over in Europe. So that was their goal. Guys, unfortunately, for the Allies, they came across the English Channel and then basically walked and fought across France. They will not get to take Berlin. There was a famous song in the 40s called, when the Yanks go marching in. We take Berlin, okay? That was the goal. So the First Army crosses the Rhine River on March 7th, 1945. German defenses crumble. So Eisenhower's got to make a decision. Do we push forward, take Berlin, which would result in casualties for American, British, and other Allied troops? Or we can let Stalin take Berlin, and the Soviets allow them to take Berlin. If we take it, that means we're pushing way out here into Eastern Germany. Show you again where Berlin is. So we would be pushing out here, okay? Now, Stalin said he wouldn't interfere in Eastern Europe. We told him Poland couldn't be communist. Now, if we take Prague as well, which is right here, okay, then we're really kind of have the ability to hold Stalin's feet to the fire. Maybe make him keep his promises. Or we could mop up German forces behind our own lines, but the Soviets take Berlin and Prague. This would make it easier for Stalin to impose communism, not only in Poland, but in Eastern Europe. And as you guys know, I've kind of let the cat out of the bag. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Latvia, Lithuania, what becomes known as Yugoslavia, will all fall to communism. Churchill disagreed with this decision. He tried to convince Roosevelt and Eisenhower to take these, to take Prague, take Berlin. But they wanted to avoid U.S. casualties. So we're going to stop 50 miles west of Berlin at what's known as the Elbe or Elbe River and allow the Soviets to take Berlin. So Eastern Europe, little play on words here, go from Nazi tyranny to commie tyranny. More than 100 million people will suffer under communism for 40 years until the Cold War ends in 1990, 1989, 90. Okay. Now, I don't get to do a whole lot of Cold War history in here. We will do some for sure. Okay. But when communism finally collapses, first in Berlin, okay, we'll talk about how Germany is going to be divided into East Germany and West Germany. Berlin will be divided into East Berlin and West Berlin. There will be rebellions against communists in Hungary, Czechoslovakia. Those rebellions will be put down with brutal force by the Soviet Union. In Poland, someone you may have heard of, John Paul II, was living during all of this in Poland, during the Nazis coming in, and then the communists taking over. Okay? Combined with Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, British Prime Minister, Pope John Paul II, those three were very instrumental in bringing down communism in Poland. There was a man named Lech Walesa, led a movement in Poland to get rid of communism at the risk of his own life. When Pope John Paul went to Poland in 1989 and held mass, outdoor mass, and you guys know Poland is majority Catholic, yes? We're talking about giving mass to more than 1 million people that show up for Pope John Paul's mass in Warsaw. Okay? Powerful. Because guys, there's no religion under communism. So when the Pope returns home and offers mass, he's doing it in the face of the communists. Okay? It was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay? So, while I have this map up here, guys, are we good on the notes? Let me talk about a couple of things. I mentioned how the Soviet troops were angry. And when they went into Berlin, they were very undisciplined. They were told to kill the Nazis, to kill the enemy, until they surrendered. So when the the Russian troops went into Berlin, they behaved very badly. Now, Hitler would not allow the civilians to leave the city. Literally, guys, they're defending Berlin with 13 and 14-year-old boys. They're out of troops. And so when the Russians come in, guys, they are going to mistreat the population of Berlin. Most notably, the German women. The number of rapes conducted by Soviet troops in Berlin is well documented. Not just one woman being raped one time, but we're talking about gang rapes, where survivors talked about how Soviet troops made husbands, children, watch as they raped the women of Berlin. Okay? They behaved very poorly. Now, had we taken Berlin, would that have happened? No, it would not have happened. Okay? Listen, yes, you do have bad apples in the military, but you're not getting away with that in the United States military. Not en masse. Okay? Also on this map, I want to bring up the subject of Dresden. Any of you familiar with this city? Or know the story of the city? Maybe a little bit? Okay. In the waning weeks of the war, like guys, we knew we were going to win, right? After Battle of Bulge, after we crossed the Rhine, guys, the Russians are coming, we're going to win. It's over for the Nazis. Churchill was instrumental in this decision, and a lot of people dislike him for it, and that's okay. Have any of you guys heard of a book called Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut? Or the author Kurt Vonnegut? Okay. This book is about what happened to Dresden. we are going to bomb this city in the waning weeks of the war. It's a very old city. Most of the structures are made out of wood. The Royal Air Force and the Army Air Force from the United States will bomb this night and day over a period of days. The city is going to burn. Now, what you have going on in Dresden, guys, there is some military significance to the city. But it's not a huge industrial area. It does have some military significance, but not great. But what you have going on here is people that are fleeing the Russian army from the east, people that are coming this direction, they're passing through Dresden. Many civilians will be caught up in this bombing rain. The fire that is created from these bombs is going to create hurricane force winds because the fire is so large it's consuming all of the oxygen. So you guys know, like when a bomb goes off or an atomic bomb goes off, you get the mushroom cloud because the fire is sucking in all the air and it goes up. Okay? This bombing killed tens of thousands of civilians. When they started doing autopsies on the bodies, usually when there's a fire, people die from smoke inhalation or actually burning to death. Most of the people that died in Dresden died from suffocation. There was no air to breathe. The air was all being consumed by the fire. People suffocated to death. That's how big the fire was, okay? I mention this, guys, because Dresden becomes the poster child of the anti-war movement after World War II. That and the atomic bombs, of course, right? It becomes the poster child. Now, some people theorize that Churchill insisted on this because of this reason. Churchill was a good judge of character. He knew Stalin was a bad dude. And what he wanted was for Soviet troops advancing on the Eastern Front to pass through Dresden and see what the combined air forces of the Royal Air Force and the Army Air Corps were capable of doing to Russian cities if they did not follow through on their promises. Churchill wanted them to see that with their own eyes. What could happen to them? Okay. Now, when I taught War and Peace, and I had students do research on this battle, this bombing, I had students come down on both sides of this. Like, yes, there was some military significance. The war wasn't necessarily over. Okay. So the bombing of Dresden was okay. Others, like Kurt Vonnegut and Slaughterhouse 5, came down on the other side of that. That this was way too much. Okay. So I just wanted to bring it up. Okay. While I had the map up here. Okay. So guys, you know what this means? Victory in Europe. The war is over in Europe. Okay. Now, this map this is what becomes NATO and the Warsaw Pact later on. Okay. So Estonia, Lithuania, or Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, all communist. All satellite nations, what become known as satellite nations of the Soviet Union. Yugoslavia will also be communist under a different leader named as Marshal Tito, will control Yugoslavia. Austria will be independent by 1955. Switzerland remains neutral, as well as do Switzerland and Finland. Finland, who was attacked by the Soviet Union during the war, held out in what was called the Winter War. Last week, Finland joined NATO. They're now part of a military alliance with the United States that borders Russia. Okay? These blue countries will be NATO member countries, plus more. We'll get into that in the next section. Okay? So, victory in Europe. Now, before that actually happens on May 8th, President Roosevelt, as I've been kind of predicting, foreshadowing, will die April 12th, 1945. Medically, you would call it a brain aneurysm or a cerebral hemorrhage. Now, guys, if you were born in 1920, Roosevelt was your president from the age of 12 to the age of 25. Okay. So obviously the nation is going to mourn the passing of Roosevelt, and the weight of this war is all going to fall on the shoulders of a senator from Missouri, now Vice President Harry S. Truman. Germany will surrender. Soviet and American troops will meet at the Elbe River on April 25th, 1945. May 8th becomes known as VE Day. Now, I am aware of the conspiracy theories surrounding Hitler's death. Okay? I don't believe them. Any of you guys seen the movie Downfall? Downfall? Really good movie. Okay? Over Hitler's last days. Okay? But anyhow, from what most people believe is that Hitler married his longtime mistress, Eva Braun, in a bunker in Berlin. There with them was Joseph Goebbels with his family. The Goebbels will kill themselves and their children. Hitler and Eva Braun will commit suicide, and Hitler will also shoot his dog, German Shepherd. Okay. The instructions were to burn the body. I saw an interview with a Russian soldier that was there. He said the body was not burned. They took the body to an undisclosed grave. He had heard that it had been moved one more time since then, but did not know where. Like when bin Laden was killed in Pakistan, when we finally, SEAL Team 6 caught up to bin Laden. We buried that dude at sea. Okay? You don't want to create a place of martyrdom where, people can go visit the grave site of this person and so forth. Okay, so do we know for sure what happened to Hitler? No. Did some Nazis escape? Yes, we know that for sure. Where did a lot of them go?
Argentina.
Pro-fascist Argentina. Also Central America. Some went to Canada. Some came to the United States under new identities. And over the decades, we have been able to track down some of these people. Just about, I think it was about 6 years ago, they found one in Canada. The dude was literally like near death. And they sent him back to Israel. Huh? He was old. Now, you into creepy movies? I got a creepy movie for you. It's a movie called Apt Pupil. Okay? There's this kid. It's a high school kid. And he is just infatuated with the Nazis. Like he loves history. He loves learning about it. About Nazi. He's not a Nazi. He's really interested in it, right? A lot of kids like that, right? So he's reading through books. He's reading about it. He sees a picture of a guy. He's looking at this picture in this book. He's thinking, this guy looks like my next door neighbor. This old guy that lives next door, who has a German accent. The kid starts doing some research. This dude was like a bad dude, like Nazi war criminal. So the kid figures out who he is. And then he blackmails the guy. Makes him put on his uniform and march around and stuff, and he messes with this old man. Okay. It's a weird, creepy, apt pupil. Okay. So, I mean, it may not be worth your time. I'd watch Downfall before I watch that, unless you're like a weird person. Yeah.
Oh, what happened to the guy who came back to Israel?
He was put on trial. Okay, and I think he died, like natural causes. There's another show. I think this is on Netflix. It's not called Nazi Hunters, but they're Nazi Hunters. Have you guys seen this one? Yeah. I watched a couple seasons of it. What's it called? Do you remember what it's called? Yeah. But like there were groups of Jews that would try and track these people down and find them, bring them to justice. Okay. Yeah. It's pretty crazy. This is Trafalgar Square in London. See Churchill piece. Okay. These are all people. Okay. Huge celebration. Truman said this after VE Day. He said, the war is but half won. Europe is free, but Asia remains in chains. Okay, so we got a long road back there. So that's what we're going to talk about next. Okay. This picture is actually from after VJ Day, the end of the war, but threw it in there. Yeah. Okay. Now, what time did we get out today? 50? 45? 45? Okay. Well, maybe I'll teach, and then Monday I can start with a video. Okay, because there are some videos that I want to show you over this, especially this one. Okay. Yeah. Guys, as I mentioned before, the Japanese control all of these islands in red. The vast majority of them have airstrips on them. Okay? So as we start to bring our Navy into the South Pacific, they're very vulnerable to enemy aircraft, any enemy Navy, enemy submarines. Okay? So we're going to start taking back these islands one by one. I have a list here on the bottom left. Okay? The Gilbert Islands, Tarawa, Bakin, Marshall Islands, Kwajalein, and Ewantok, okay, Mariana Islands, which includes Saipan, Guam, Tinian Island, okay, and then as we get closer, obviously we got to take back the Philippines, okay, we get closer, Okinawa and Iwo Jima, okay, and these are two of the more famous islands, yes. Like on the ground, you can find stuff. Yeah. Yeah. That would not be surprising. Some of you guys seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge? Hacksaw Ridge. Benjamin Doss, right? Benjamin Doss? Desmond Doss. That was here on Okinawa. Now, what's interesting about these islands, guys, some of these islands have indigenous people on them. Like people that live on these islands. Some of them don't. Like Iwo Jima over here is a volcanic island. But it had 3 airfields on it. Okay? We had to take it. If we are going to invade Japan and knock them out of the war, we've got to take these islands. Palau is another one. You watch Pacific. Palau. Oh, gosh. Guys, it's brutal. And I don't know how to describe it in language. But like on Okinawa, where they had indigenous people, like civilians lived on this island. I don't know if I told you this. Maybe I did. The Japanese like to attack at night. So we would set up perimeters. You hear anything, you start shooting. Japanese would send civilians, women and children, into our patrols, into our perimeters. Making noise, they're going to make noise. And our soldiers would open fire on anything they heard. And then they wake up the next morning and realize that they had butchered women and children. Now think about the impact that has on the soldier's psyche. Now we used a lot of propaganda in this country. Just like the Germans did when they talked about how Jews were less than human. They dehumanized. When you dehumanize the enemy, it makes it easier to kill them if you don't feel they are fully human. We did a lot of this too with the Germans and the Japanese, especially with the Japanese. Okay? So if you look back at these war posters, Rosie the Riveter, right? That's propaganda. Okay? We can do it. These war posters, guys, would portray the Japanese soldiers as apes, monkeys, rats, these sorts of things, making it easier for them to kill them. Okay, this was not easy to do. I got 5 minutes. Let me just take you there. Okay. I haven't been showing this in the last couple of years, but I'm going to show it to you. If I can remember what it's called. That's what I was looking for. Oh, come on. Let me search for it. Got it.
Are we gonna talk about the land?
Okay, take a look at this picture. Okay, this was published in Life magazine in 1945. Okay, you see this woman, nicely dressed. There's a skull on the table. Okay, maybe she's taking a anatomy class, physiology class, something like that, like biology class. This is the caption, 1943. Excuse me. Would our soldiers be allowed to do this today? During the war in Afghanistan, one of our units came under attack by the Taliban. They got ambushed. Several of our soldiers were killed in this ambush. The surviving troops went out looking for the Taliban that committed this ambush. They found the guys. They killed them. They were pissed at these guys because their brothers had just been murdered. And so these 5 soldiers urinated on the corpses of the 5 Taliban soldiers they had killed. They videotaped it. They were court-martialed. In World War II, they would not have been court-martialed. None of us, I hope, ever have to find out what it's like to be in a war, to kill other human beings. Okay, I can't imagine it. A student is interviewing her grandfather this weekend, fought in Vietnam. He doesn't talk about it. She goes like, what do I ask him? Okay, listen. This allows our soldiers to blow off steam. Yes, it's crude. Yes, it's probably wrong, guys. But you've got to allow people to cope with war. Because if they don't know how to cope with it, what happens? They freak out, man. They freak out. And how do we train our soldiers to go to war and then come back to society? With post-traumatic stress, obviously, we're not doing a very good job when on average 22 veterans take their own lives a day in this country. We're not doing a very good job of preparing people for the horrors of war. And so maybe propaganda, maybe giving them a different way to blow off, I don't know. Now, obviously, guys, veterans of World War II dealt with all these problems as well, usually through alcoholism. Okay? A whole generation. Best not to have wars, and we don't have to have this. But, so, this is some of the propaganda. I'm going to go through this fast. Guys, you're not going to find this. It's very politically incorrect stuff here. Okay? So you can see Japanese being portrayed as a rat here, okay? This one's almost a little bit funny, but Germans also portrayed here as monsters. Okay, you don't see as much of this with the Germans, but it's there. Okay, portraying women, children in this. Now, the Japanese employed some of this themselves. Okay, I got this at the World War II Museum. You see Roosevelt portrayed here. Okay, this one talking about, raping of women and stuff like that. Okay, here's some others. Churchill, Roosevelt. Okay. All right. Okay, hey, have a good weekend. We'll pick up from there Monday. I might try and do a test next Thursday, guys.